welcome. I'm Robert, and today I want to discuss Shadows of Brimstone, City of the Ancients. This is a game that I recently saw on sale, and throughout the years since I started the hobby, I have heard of it being a great dungeon crawler. So I did some research and I went ahead and pulled the trigger on this, and I'm pretty happy I did. There's a lot I want to discuss with this. I'll also, later in the video, I'm going to discuss how I managed to organize everything that is part of the core set and fit it back in the box. I always enjoy discussing that stuff. But so what have I done so far? So since I opened it, I went ahead and assembled and painted the minis, which is it is a requirement. Um, and that can be a pretty big time investment. You have to be warned about that. If you do not enjoy assembling or painting minis, that could be a deterrent for you to get into this system. That's understandable. I did have a very short-lived period of time where I played Warhammer, and I learned to paint miniatures through that, and I do really enjoy it. And this is the first solo board game that I've bought that came with miniature sprues instead of resin sculpts. So even though I know that it's a bit more of a time investment, assembling them and everything, but I just really enjoy that process. It's just very relaxing, honestly. So this was not a deterrent to me at all. Actually, a big selling point now moving forward with this game system. To be honest with you, if I want to get more of it, more content for it, just the process of assembling the miniatures and painting them, just there's a lot of value there for me. But anyway, so this is a dungeon crawler with a Western pulp theme, and throw in some Cthulhu horror stuff, and you get a very interesting game that really stands out. Definitely nothing like it in my collection. Nothing. I don't have anything Western themed. So this does a really good job of just taking that box if you wanted a Western theme in your game in your collection. So a lot of people have they treat this as one of the best examples of what is known as an Ameritrash game. It just lots of luck, lots of rolling dice. So heads up if you don't like rolling dice, steer clear from this game. You're going to be rolling lots and lots of dice. Okay. Not an issue for me so far. I've controlled two or three characters. I think controlling two and three characters. I think controlling three characters is a bit much to maintain upkeep wise. Game plays fine with two. I have reached level 4 and 3 with the Saloon Girl and Marshall, respectively. This is my sixth quest. I have to mention that this game just does such a wonderful job of generating, like, no two adventures will be the same. So there's 12 included scenarios with different objectives, but even the very first scenario, which is the basic scenario where you just are supposed to explore and collect darkstone, and it's just like a very basic scenario where you just go and level up. Basically, even that, no two will ever be the same. I could just play that over and over just to grind the characters, honestly. But you on top of that, you get another 11 scenarios with various goals and everything. I've only played the first three because I repeated the first scenario a couple of times. But you get different goals, so a lot to explore there. But the way that this game generates dungeons, I think is one of the best I think it's the best I've experienced. The way that it uses the tiles to generate dungeons, it's insane. Really, really good job in generating just infinite possibilities of different dungeons and emerging as stories and situations and board states. It's just remarkably well done. The combat. You're gonna be rolling lots and lots of dice, okay? And The combat reminds me a lot. So again, I had a very short lived time with Warhammer, but the way that it resolves combat, it reminds me a lot of that. There's there's the defense rolls and armor rolls. So the way that the combat is works in this game, it reminds me a lot of Warhammer. And this is one of those games when thinking back about Folklore the Affliction, right? Another board gamification of an RPG, which this game definitely tries to do, right? Pretty successfully, in my opinion. But with Folklore, there's elements where you're supposed to write stuff down, and then there's board game elements. You have the tokens, the cards, so it kind of tries to be both, but it doesn't. Folklore didn't include every card for every item you could possibly earn in the game, or tokens, or like status tokens and things like that. So that was a bit of an issue. However, with Folklore, fans of the game, they created tokens that you could print, and the company later on they created decks for items that you could earn later so that you don't have to write everything on paper. I prefer treating this more as a board game. So I like using tokens and cards as much as possible to represent everything. The game, though, kind of, it doesn't really facilitate that too much. There's a couple crucial things missing. So there's no cards for um, uh, like a talent tree as you level up. There's no cards to represent that. So one solution for that is just photocopying the talent tree page and just laminating it and cutting it, which is what I did. There's also a awesome website where you can create town item cards, and that's what I did. And I just use a poker card for the proxy. uh, so now that is quite a time investment, though. So I think this makes this game it turns it into a bit of a lifestyle game. Like, you really have to be willing to spend some time, not only assembling the minis, figuring out how to organize it, but also, you're gonna run into this where I honestly don't want to write this stuff down on pen and um, a pen and paper, and that's my choice. Like, I understand a lot of people do it that way, but I like treating it like a board game, and I like the game so much I don't really mind. But you do have to keep that in mind. It is a pretty big time investment. You're gonna have to spend time creating the tokens and all of that. Sorry, the town cards. Again, there's a web tool that you can use to create cards that the game doesn't offer. One thing, though, that I'll mention, um, I'm not very pleased with how Flying Frog Games treats the community solutions to this. So there's people that have this created, town card decks, right, that you can print, and they've taken it down aggressively. Which, again, I can okay, like, I can respect that. It's like their game or whatever. But if you're not gonna let fans offer a solution, just sell one yourself, which they haven't to date. There's no town card deck of, like, if you don't want to have to create a card item, a card for every card in the game, they don't offer an alternative. I mean, I'll throw my credit card at you. I'll throw my credit card at you just so that I save the time and do it. Offer me a solution. But if you're not going to offer a solution, let fans do it. But for some bizarre reason, they just go after it and aggressively tell people to take it down. I really don't get it. I really don't get it. But it's their property. Like, I can respect that. But at the same time, if you're not gonna let the fans do it, just create the product yourself, and I'll throw my credit card at you. Anyway, I had to mention that. I thought it was weird because Folklore handled it so differently. I think, in fact, that some of the Folklore people, some of those fan created stuff, they made it official. Like, they put up the PDFs on their website. Much more friendlier approach. Anyway, And on the subject of this being a lifestyle game, right? Um, the rabbit hole with this game product line is real. Okay, there's a lot, and if you're a completionist, stay away from this game. I'm not. I don't think I have ever been a completionist, but I have aggressively purchased stuff before for sure. I'm not a completionist, thankfully, but it is very easily to fall down the rabbit hole of this product line. There's a quite a lot, and I'm definitely, this is not going to be my only purchase. I want to get the Swamps of Death core set, and again, remember the value of the miniature painting stuff. I just enjoy that immensely, so that's a big value for me. Just the assembling and the painting of the miniatures is just awesome to me. There's so much you can add to this game. It's insane. And that compounds the issue of organizing it. This game it is a challenge to organize for sure. But yeah, I also haven't mentioned the miniatures here. So I want to show the other couple models that I painted. These were just a joy to paint. Just had so much fun. And one interesting thing that happened. So these look like the textbook examples of how you were supposed to paint them, right? But believe it or not, there's a painting guide at the end of the adventure book, right? But believe it or not, I did not reference that at all. I just saw the monster illustrations and I did my best just to, whatever I saw, I just went ahead and tried to come up with the best recipe for it. But, after I spent a whole weekend painting these, and thank God for speed paints, by the way. I love speed paints, so it just saves so much time. That's the majority of the process. It took me like 2 or 3 days total. But yeah, there's a painting guide at the end of the adventure book, and I'm like, oh well, I could have saved a bit of time not having to figure out so much time. Figuring out recipes. I think this could have saved me a bit of time, but it's okay. Speed paints came to the rescue. But yeah, I just felt a bit silly, like trying to concoct recipes where there was a painting guide. Uh, the rule book or anything. First thing I did when I opened this was just paint the miniatures, and everything came after that. In between adventures, there's the town phase, right? Just to keep things interesting, and it's relatively low maintenance. Now there's the expansion that adds a bit more meat to the town phase. I mean, the town phase, you pretty much just visit a couple locations, sell your items, buy items, and maybe an event will happen that'll be good or bad for you, and then you go back to your missions. I like that it's low maintenance because what I enjoy the most about this is the dungeon crawl experience. Okay. Um, and I like that the town phase is kept simple. Now there's the Frontier Towns expansion that'll make it a bit more meatier, that in between adventures experience. And I'm pretty ambivalent. I don't know if I want to complicate that phase of the game more. Some people say it's essential. I'm pretty ambivalent about it. I don't know if I want to do that or not. I definitely want more characters. I want a bit more enemy variety. One big mistake here that I can see that has been brought up before. There's no ranged enemies included in the box. Definitely a mistake, and definitely something that I will correct. I do want to buy the Masters of the Void expansion for this. And oh, I wanted to mention, this is the least fiddly way I could think of keeping track of experience and gold. I do not want to use tokens for experience and gold. I know that some people use poker chips, and one of the expansions comes with tokens for that. But I don't want more tokens on top of the character sheets. Um, so this is what I came up with. So you have characters 1 and 2. Okay, so I have the number there, 1 and 2. All right, and I just use dry erase. And if I control 3 characters, I have this one right here. All right, so this is what I came up with. And I saw that the dungeon dive. I did see a couple of his videos. He laminated the characters, which is great, but I saved time not having to do that because since the Sleeve Kings has come up with a sleeve that perfect is sleeve size for $5 or so. You get 110 sleeves that are the perfect size for the character sheets. So I can dry erase on them to keep track of stat changes. All right. So yeah, that's the only writing I do for stat changes and for experience and gold. Everything else is tracked in the form of tokens. This is also definitely one of the biggest time investment games that I've run into where the reward was worthwhile. There's been other games in my collection where they asked of me a fraction of the time, maybe because of the rules investment. But the reward was just I wanted my time back. Not with this game though. This game, after painting the miniatures, organizing it, reading the rules, more on that in a second. But after all of that, to me, this is I feel so rewarded after all of that investment. This game system is just so wonderful and fun, and the gameplay loop is deceptively simple, right? Because you roll to move, you attack or explore, and then you roll the lantern for events, basically. There's a timer mechanism there with a depth track, so it's deceptively simple. But there's so much going. A turn can be simple. You just roll dice, attack, and that's it. But there's so many little situations that where it makes the rules a lot heavier. I think this game has made me write the biggest cheat sheet to date. So I've done this with, I'll publish this file, by the way. So this is a type of file that I'm going to start publishing soon, because I've done this with every game that I've learned, by the way. I've just never published it. The first one was Arc Nova. This is the second one that I'm going to publish soon. So this is basically what I consider, it's not a full rules summary. It's just rules that, like, if I come back to the game months later, I need to make sure that I review these rules specifically. As long as I know the turn structure and the overall flow of the game, I just need to keep these rules in mind. And I've always created these cheat sheets for every game that I make, and I think this is on the top three. And I've played like a couple hundred games by now. This is the biggest cheat sheet that I've made for a game to date. And I think the biggest reason is this is the revised edition, which included a lot of the FAQ stuff from the previous edition. So, because of the FAQ, they get very, very specific to address every possible, situation that could emerge. All right, every case it tries to address everything, but a lot of these things, honestly, they might not apply. But there's still a lot of rules that one might forget. For example, this was my sixth game, right? And yet I forgot that the large enemies push out the small enemies. Okay, so I forgot that for the first few rounds of combat. So I think this game has really, really challenged me as far as trying to remember everything. And this game is really prone to rules mistakes because there's so many things. But the game it's a bit loose, so it's okay. And the game does encourage house ruling. The game encourages house ruling and all of that. But yeah, if you're like I'm kind of obsessed with trying to remember rules accurately all the time. But even then, like I've kind of let it go. I know that I'm gonna make rules mistakes. But yeah, this game has been pretty. It really has challenged me to try to remember everything, and I think I've done a decent job. Uh, After the sixth game, I think in this entire game, I think the only thing I forgot was that large enemies push smaller enemies aside. Just giving you one example right there of how even at all of those games later, you could still forget a thing or two. This game takes the cake for the absolute biggest monster table hog in my collection. I have to have a side table here, okay? Two side tables. So one for these tokens, which luckily these don't see a lot of use. All right, they're very situational. Mostly the side bag items. These are the ones that I tend to pick up the most. But these tokens here, they barely see any use, and a lot of them are not even used out of the box. Okay, but you have the different decks and more decks over here. You have the tiles. And I just have my miniatures in here. But Yeah, this is the absolute biggest table hog in my entire collection. Takes the cake, and it is the first game in my collection that has made me think of getting a bigger table. I don't know if I'm there yet. Luckily, this game, because it encourages exploration, you don't there's very few scenarios in which you actually have to go back to old tiles, so you can so as you explore the mine or the dungeon or whatever, you can just remove old tiles, all right. And that way you keep the table changes dynamically and you can move your stuff around, but definitely a bit of a challenge to fit on a table if you have limited space, but yeah, so that is Shadows of Brimstone. Awesome system, and I don't know if it's more of a lifestyle game than I don't know, because there's many lifestyle games, right? So there's like LCGs and whatnot. I think this takes the cake as one of the biggest like rabbit hole lifestyle games you could get into. The only other thing I can think of is what's his name, Kingdom Death Monster, but I don't really know much about that game other than the reprints take forever and that the entry price is like $500. So I know that's crazy. I don't know how much more of a lifestyle that game is compared to this. I will have so maybe one of you knows. You can type it in the comment section. You can tell me like if for whatever reason you're into both this and Kingdom Death Monster. Um, you can tell me if you think it's more the Kingdom Death Monster is the bigger rabbit hole and the bigger lifestyle game. But I love that I can keep this. I love that I can keep this on my table almost indefinitely. Like I could just keep this on my table for as long as I wanted and just keep adventuring, keep dungeon crawler, keep leveling up, keep gaining loot. I love that property about this game. This is just one of those games that I could easily leave it on the table pretty much as long as I wanted, and the expansion content will improve that even more. But make no mistake, there's a lot of content in this base box. I've barely scratched the content in this base box, but this core set. But I love this system so much. It's definitely not gonna be. I'm not gonna stop here. I'm definitely gonna get more. But yeah, that's Shadows of Brimstone. And now let's discuss how I stored this SOB back in the box. All right, so now let's check out how I stored all of the core set content and also leaving a bit of extra room in case you want to add more. So I definitely got rid of the insert. The insert was pretty much useless, and this is what I came up with. So first, we have actually, before I get into this, I added these foam core pieces to make sure that this stayed put when I close the box. The miniatures are underneath this, and I didn't want them jumping around and moving around while I transport the box. So just a piece of foam core, and that also gives you a bit of extra room too in case you want to add future content. So all right, so let's put that aside. So now this is a DVG. This is a DVG token tray. All right. Let me make sure that's sealed tight, and there we go. So DVG token tray, and this fits almost all of the tokens. There's a separate container that I used for the tokens that I saw the most use throughout the game. I rarely, like I said, I rarely had to reach for this. I added the D6 and the D8 there because I couldn't fit it. I couldn't fit it in this container here that I'm about to show you. So this is the one that I open for the elements of the game that I use the most often, which are the dice and a few of the other tokens, like the depth track and all of that, the depth track and exploration party tracker and all of that. These are wound tokens that I made myself. You might have seen it in the previous video. All right, there you go. This is the experience and gold tracker. I even managed to fit the CD back in there, and you can get rid of that later if you rip the music out or you just want to use the YouTube playlist that the music's up on YouTube, and you can make a bit more room. Here is this is a Plano box. and I added I glued using some hot glue and cutting this space. I created that space for this big wound and sanity tokens. Okay. But yeah, these are the tokens that saw the most use throughout while I played. So yeah, I didn't really have to reach for the others that much, like I said. So if you're buying this for the first time, these are the tokens that you're gonna use the most. So try to keep these within reach. Here is this is a pill. This is a pill container of dollar store pill container. I removed the labels, and now you have the elite. This is the elite monster ability tokens, and these are the basic bullets for the marshal. And here are the exploration tokens. Gonna put the disc aside. You got the depth track right here. This is the gun board for the gunslinger. All right, and you got the characters and the monster stat cards. And I haven't sleeved all of them yet. I need to do that. But all right, there we go. Okay, so here you have all of the documentation and the town card, like the town, frontier town information cards and the location cards. Okay, let me put this over here. Rule book and a couple of extra material printouts. Okay, so I got a one of those foam trays for this is a 2.5 inch tall one, and I added this to make sure that the spiders and the heroes didn't didn't get out of the foam tray. And there's a bit more room here if you wanted to add more enemies later. This is a bit of a problem though. This guy, because he's pretty tall. So let me go ahead and pull this out. I just want to show. I actually dug a little hole in there. Okay, I actually dug a little hole in there so that he wouldn't be propped up as much. Yeah, I made a hole the size of the base just so that he could go a bit lower because. Yeah, like he's pretty tall, so he's a bit of a challenge. I should have magnetized the tentacles. I didn't think of that. It was a bit too late when I assembled. And I have the gate. I carved a little hole so that the gate tokens kind of stay in there. All right, there we go. Okay, so yeah, that's the token. Sorry, the miniatures. And all right, so here I have the cards, and I glued a piece of foam core, the width there of the box, and the way that I organize the cards. So these are all the core set cards, and I took 3x4 inch baggies that you can buy like 100 of those for a couple dollars at craft stores and whatnot. So 3x4 inch baggies, and I cut off the top, right, using a paper cutter. And basically this creates a pocket that lets you fit a bunch of cards. I would estimate about 30 to 40 cards, maybe a bit less if sleeved. So that creates pockets that lets you separate things, and those pockets have been perfect for separating everything. These are the proxies that I made for town cards, the ones that I've made so far, and that way you can keep everything organized on the side. So you can just pull out, see, so you got the tokens. These are the starting cards. These are the reference cards. And well, for this one, I use a bigger bag. These are the bags that when you purchase sleeves, the sleeves come in this little transparent bag. So I cut off the top and it's stored there. So I did use 2 of these. And it all fits back in there. And there is a bit of room back here too for you to add. So for example, here I added the character packs that include their starting abilities and their talent tree abilities. But there's even a bit more room back there too. If you wanted to kind of push that a bit, you can fit a bit more back there. So these are the smaller tiles, and what I used here, this is a a Too Many Bones Gearloc box. These boxes are way too nice, and I always feel bad throwing them out. So I didn't hoard all of them, but I hoard a few, and I'm thankful I did, because I was able to store it like this. Okay, so let me remove this so that you can see the. Yeah, so there we go. So these are all the tiles, and I just used a rubber band for the end caps. All right, and here's the Gearloc box. Okay, and there you go. So that fits back in there. So you got all the tiles, and just fits back in there. There you go. And yeah, that pretty much is the extent of that. And I do have a bit more room here. I think that I'm probably gonna keep a couple things separate. Like if I add anything major, like the Frontier Town expansion, I'm probably gonna keep it separate. I don't know if I do end up getting the Swamps of Death set, I don't know if I'm gonna end up integrating it like into one box, or I'll figure that out. I think I'm gonna treat each as their own box, because I can replicate this exact same storage solution, so that this worked out pretty well. But yeah, so that's how I stored Shadows of Brimstone, City of the Ancients. Definitely was fun puzzling with that and figuring out how I could store this neatly. But yeah, that's Shadows of Brimstone, City of the Ancients storage solution.